Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. Continuing on with the drashas of the psukim of the Parah Aduma. The pasuk says, "V'hiza Torah ala Tomei." The person that's Torah sprinkles the water on the person that's Tomei, sprinkles on the 3rd day and the 7th day. Why does the Torah have to say Torah? We're talking about the same person that we were talking about previously, and therefore we know that in the context of these psukim, we're talking about someone who's Torah. Why does it have to reiterate that he was Torah? So therefore, Torah Michal Shu Tomei. It says Torah, meaning he's not completely Torah. He has been Torah, he has some of his tumah has been removed, so he has entered a state of Torah, but not completely Torah. He's Torah regarding this halacha, but he's not completely Torah. So therefore, limit al Tful Yom shekosher b'para. It comes to teach us that a Tful Yom is kosher b'para. Tful Yom, someone who was Tomei, and he was Toivel, he went to the mikveh, but he did not have nightfall yet. He did not have Hera Shemesh. This type of a person is Tahor, but as far as Truma and Kochim, he's not allowed to eat them. So he's not considered Torah for that. He's Torah legabe other things, but not legabe that. So he's not completely Torah. So it comes to teach us that a Tful Yom, even though a Tful Yom is not completely Torah, and for Avodah, and would not be allowed to do the Avodah, but for the Parah Aduma is kosher b'para. This was the source of the machlokes between the Chachamim and the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim did not accept this drasha, and that's why we have all these halachas by the Parah Aduma that they specifically used a Tful Yom to do the Parah Aduma, to do the avodah of the Parah Aduma, lo haitz milibon shel tzedukim, but to counter this, so there shouldn't be a zilzul, the Chacham made all kinds of chumas. Rabbi Yossi ki havabe Rabbi Yochanan v'Reish Lakish b'Parah. When Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, when they were Isaac in the sugya of Parah Aduma, so they tried to see if they can learn the psukim consistently, that talking either by Elazar or by a Kohen Hedget. Or are we talking specifically by a Lazar, or are we talking even by a Hedget, or talking about a Zar? But they cannot learn psukim in a consistent way, only from what the fox brings up from its feet from plowed field, meaning and nothing of significance. They were not able to learn the parasha in a consistent way. And as they said, rather, as we said before, that some psukim are saying the reverse of what was the previous pasuk was, and sometimes the subsequent pasuk is consistent with the previous pasuk. They were not able to learn all the psukim in one consistent way. He said, shchita is kosher with a zar. You don't need a kohen except bishal para, except a paris of Parah Aduma. Amalei Rav Yochanan Puktan Lebron. Rav Yochanan says no, and go teach this outside the base medrash. Lo matzinu shchita b'zar psula. We don't find any case where shchita b'zar is psula, even in the case of the Parah Aduma. And Rav Yochanan not only does he not accept the view of the Tana of the Baraisa, he doesn't even accept the view of his Rebbe. The Amar of Yochanan Mishum ben Yohai Tzalda, shchita is para b'zar psula. He said the shchita with the zar is psula. So that's what he said. But Rav Yochanan said, but I myself, I'm merk. It's kosher lo matzin shchita psula b'zar. We don't find that shchita is psula b'zar. So now, returning now to the avodah of Yom Kippur. Now, returning now from Parah Aduma, we're going back to the avodah of Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol comes to his para second time, and he does the second vidui. And he says second vidui. So, in the first vidui that he says, the first confession, he says that kaper for me and my family, but it doesn't say for all of the Kohanim. And Maishna, the vidui sheni, and why does it differ from the second vidui? The Amr uvnei Aaron am kedushecha. He also mentions bnei Aaron am kedushecha. So Tani the Be'er Shmuel, this is the way, the proper way it should be done, because mutav yavazaka v'chaper al chayev. Who's the one should have daven for forgiveness Who's the one that should be able to receive a kapara for someone who is chayiv? It's the one who's zakai. The innocent one, he's the one that should be able to receive a kapara, to daven for a kapara for the one who's chayiv. But the one who's chayiv, how can he intercede and daven to Hashem for kapara for someone who's chayiv, where he himself is chayiv? So therefore, first the Kohen Gadol, he does the first vidui for himself, and he receives a kapara for himself. Now, even though he mentions his household, or Dvo explains, but that's considered Ishta that's considered to be part of him. So he has a confession avida for himself. He's zakai. Now, for the second vidui, where he's zakai already, where he's had forgiveness for his averas, he can ask for a kapara for the rest of the Kohanim. Now, the reason that he mentions himself a second time, is, as the Taisus Rosh says, because he has a kapara with the first vidui, but it's not complete until the second one. So he mentions himself again by the second one. Zok the Mishnah, continuing on with the Avodah Sayyim, Shchaltoi, the Kohen Gadol shechs his par, v'kibel b'mizukes dama, and he accepts the blood in a kli, in a receiving kli, in a kli to be makabel the dam, in a kli shores. And he gives the blood to one to stir it, that we don't want it to coagulate, so he gives it to one who's mamares, so it would not congeal. So he gives it to someone to stir it. This person is stirring the blood on the fourth row of the stones, and we'll see where the Gemara will say exactly where it is. It says shebeheichal, in the heichal, but the Gemara will really further define this. He gives it to another kohen to stir it so that it would not coagulate and not congeal, so that by the time he does the zrika, it will still be in a liquid form and it would not congeal, which would render it possible. So this other kohen is stirring it till the time that comes for the zrika. Then the kohen, he continues, and not l'machtav al rosh mizbeach. He takes a shovel and he goes to the top of the mizbeach hachitzah. So he takes the shovel, he clears the coals to the side, and he scoops up the shovel, the full shovel of the coals, the innermost coals that he does it. That's where he scoops up. Why does he do that? Because, as the Taisus Shonim explains, because it says, the pasuk says, that he takes the shovel of the coals, the fiery coals from the Mizbeach. Now, therefore, it has to be fiery. It has to be burning, but it has to be coals. So he takes from the innermost coals that are glowing, but don't have a flame. So that's what he takes from, and he takes from these coals, and he takes a full shovel of these coals. V'yored, and he kind of descends the Mizbeach, he comes down from the Mizbeach, and he puts it on the fourth row of the stones that are in the Azor. Now over here, it says the Azor. Previously, it says that it's in the Heichal. So the question is if this is the same or not. Most Rishonim learn that this is the same as the previous one. In fact, there is a girsa that Rabbeinu Yerucham brings down from the Yerushalmi, that it has a girsa also over here, the same girsa that it is in the Rav Shebehechal. That's the way most of the Rishonim learn, that it's in the same place as where the blood is. My Mishnah continues and says, every day he would scoop up the coals. He would scoop up the coals in a shovel made out of silver and then pour it into a shovel made out of gold. The Gemara will discuss why did we have this two-step process. But in any event, today on Yom Kippur, he doesn't have a two-step process. In order to prevent the exhaustion of the Kohen Gadol, not to overburden him, he only has one step. He takes a shovel, a golden shovel, and with that he comes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now every day he scoops up coals. Every day there is burning of the Keteris. There's a burning of the Keteris in the morning and in the evening, and that's done on the Mizbeach HaZahav. In addition to that, on Yom Kippur, there's a burning of the Ketairos that's done in the Kodesh Kadoshim, that's done in the shovel of the in the Kodesh Kadoshim. That's where the Ketairos is burned. So B'chol Yom Chayzer Shal Arba Kamen. Every day he scoops up coals with 4 kamen. As the Meforshim speak out, that they do it in that way, that the Bartanura explains it that way, so that to show the cover that's given, that it's a full measure, it's overflowing, it's full with the coal, that shows greater cover. So he does it with scoops a shovel that can contain 4 kamen, then he pours it into a shovel of 3 kamen. That's the measure, that's the amount of coals that's needed to burn the Ketairos. But Vayom on Yom Kippur Chaysa b'shleishes kamen, he scoops it up with 3 kamen, u'ba'ayam machnes, and he does it with that one. There's no 2-step process. Rabbi Yossi Omer says b'chol yom chayzer b'shal saw, he scoops it up with a shovel of a saw, which is 6 kamen. U'ma'ar b'sayach shleishes kamen, and pours it into a shovel of 3 kamen. Vayom chaysa b'shleishes kamen. But today there's only the 1-step process. There's a machlokes of Rishonim, and when we say that bechol yom and hayom, well, certainly when we say hayom, we're referring to the burning of the coals that are in the Kodesh Kadosh. But does it refer also to the burning of the daily Ketairos? Is it the same chiluk that we have in the daily Ketairos, that it's a Kohen Gadol and he does it in this manner? Or are we talking specifically about the burning of the Ketairos of Yom Kippur in the Kodesh Kadosh? B'chol yom ha'isa kveid, every day the shovel was heavy, v'hayom kala. But today it was used thinner material, again, so that it should not overburden the Kohen Gadol, not cause him to be exhausted. They had lighter material. Every day the handle was short. Today the handle was long. It had a long handle so that he could now support the handle with his arm and use it to support the weight of the shovel, and therefore it had a long handle. Every day the gold was yellow, but today it was red. That's what Rabbi Nachman said. It was red. That the Rishonim say that it's because it was more choshev, but Tosfos Yontiv also said that it's diamond to the blood, the color of the blood that was also brought in on Yom Kippur, that they did the hazah of the dam, and therefore the gold was also of that color. The daily burning of the Ketairos was a portion in the morning, portion in the evening. Today there was also the 2 handsful of the Ketairos that was burnt in the Kodesh Kadoshim, that the Kohen Gadol brought burnt in the Kodesh Kadoshim. Every day the Ketairos was very fine. It was ground and very fine. And today was daka min daka. They took that finely ground Ketairos and they ground it again, make it exceptionally pure and fine. Every day the Kohanim would come up to the eastern side of the kevesh. They would go up the ramp. They would go on the east side, because when they came up, then they had to turn right, so they turned right. And the kevesh was on the south. They turned right to the east. They surrounded the mizbeach. Then they came down on the western edge. So you had the ramp, and they went up the eastern side, they went around the Mizbeach, came down the western side. So and they went down on the west. But the Kohen Gadol today, he did not go to the side, he went up to the middle. And then he went around and he came again back down the middle. So he traveled the whole width of the kevesh, to show that like he was a ben bayis. He's the shalich of Klal Yisrael. He's like a ben bayis. So it goes in the middle. But Rabbi Yehuda he says he does that every day. The Kohen Gadol is different. He goes up and down and descends in the middle. Every day the Kohen Gadol is makadosh yad hara from the kiyah, from the kiyah that they had with the water. But today, from the special cover of Yom, And Kohen Gadol was done with a kitan, a golden flask. Rabbi Yehuda says that he says that every day he does it with a kitan shel zahav. The Machlekes Rishonim does when we say in the Tanakama that he does with the golden kitan, are we referring even to the first avodah of the day, or are we talking about only the subsequent? The first avodah of the day is done with the kiyar. There's a special maila and a din that it has to be done with the kiyar. It's only the subsequent ones which are not maker din. There's no chiyuv for that. You can do it with kitan shel zahav. So that's what the Rambam is mashma. But Tais is mashma that not that way, and that he always used the kitan shel zahav. Every day there was 4 marochas, 4 pyres, 4 areas which they burnt on the Mizbeach, 4 different fires. And today there was 5. The Gemara will detail what the 4, what the 5, what these different fires are. Divrei Rameir, so Rameir says, but Rav Yossi says, B'chol Yom Sholosh, every day there was 3, V'yom Arba. Rabbi Yehuda, B'chol Yom Shtayim, V'yom Sholosh. So the Gemara will discuss what the different fires are and what the machlekes is. Zok the Gemara. So it says that the blood was collected in the kli, and they makabel the dam, and it was in a kli sharas, and it was given to a kind of stirs the blood on the 4th row of stones in the heichal. Frek the Gemara, how can he be in the heichal v'aksiv v'chol adam lo yeh b'oil moyed? It says nobody should be in the oil moyed. So therefore, when they burned the ketairos, nobody's allowed to be there. How can he remain there stirring the blood when the Kohen Gadol now is burning the ketairos in the heichal? Gemara says what it means is Amar Yehuda Tani Shel Heichal, not in the Heichal, but it says the 4th row of the Heichal, meaning that it's the 4th row from the Heichal going outside. From the Heichal, the 4th row outside, that's where he stirred it. So he was outside the Heichal, not inside.